Team Canada has been eliminated from the World Juniors again after they lost to Czechia 4-3 last night. This comes after that disappointing loss to Team USA Wednesday night. They lost 4-1 during that game. 11 penalties, too, so we're going to need to talk about that. Joining us this morning to break all of this down and the team's performance is TSN and BarDown's Luca, Celebre. Good morning to you. What happened?
Yeah, that's kind of the question that everyone's waking up to and trying to still figure out. I think it was a combination of a lot of different things. You can look to the penalties and how they played an impact throughout the tournament, especially last night with that 5-minute major and a player getting kicked out, and then the winning goal for Czechia on the power play as well. And you can look to the lack of scoring. Other than that Finland game where they won 4-1, it was just tough for a team with so much talent and so much talent on paper, I guess, to score goals, which we're not really accustomed to seeing. So those are the two areas that were of greatest concern and ultimately led to Team Canada bowing out of this tournament.
Was Czechia just the better team?
Last night, they seemed like they were, and I think Canada turned it on in that second half of the game, and especially the third period, but it kind of was a trend this tournament with this team, even going back to pre-tournament games, that they kind of seemed like they were coasting a little too long during games before turning it on and having to be kind of back against the wall before responding in such a big way, and that's always going to be a dangerous kind of game to play, and falling behind 3-1 in the first period certainly didn't help, and that was kind of the result of their misfortune in the first last night.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about sort of the whole tournament. There's a lot of talk about a lack of discipline, obviously the number of penalties for the team. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it was completely undisciplined, and you would think that after that USA game where head coach Dave Cameron had a meeting with his team, talked about discipline, that it would be the number one thing. And I know those penalties, there were a couple of them that were a little questionable and could have kind of gone either way, and I know that's going to be a lot of the talk today, but you can't put yourself in those positions to be so aggressive and have that mentality of taking penalties like that. You have to be disciplined in a game like that, and when you're on home ice, the energy in the building is loud, especially after that 3-3 tying goal, and you've got a great shift going in the offensive end, and then the puck comes down and you take a penalty with 2:27 to go. Those are the key differences between wins and losses, and that's kind of how it's been for them all tournament long. So discipline was a major factor for this Team Canada team.
I know we're talking about the players, but let's go up from there. I mean, you mentioned Dave Cameron. Is this a management issue? Do we look beyond the players, focus on coaching at this point?
You definitely could. I think there are a lot of questions, and there were a lot of questions coming into the tournament, even before the tournament started, with the selection camp roster and a lot of guys that were left off of it, and a lot of notable goal scorers as well. Beckett Seneca in Oshawa, Michael Misa in Saginaw, and then you've got Andrew Cristal and Zane Parekh. So these are top NHL draft picks that were left off even the invite list to some degree, and then left off the roster and stayed home. And so you can look to that now, certainly with the lack of scoring throughout the tournament for Canada, as a big question mark on roster construction. And I think they were happy with the depth that they brought to the tournament. 12 different players scored a goal, but the problem is we didn't have that player that you're kind of accustomed to seeing score 2 or 3 a game. We just didn't have that up front for Canada, which is such a surprise for as much talent as there was out there to choose from.
And then let's broaden the scope a little bit too, because I know people are talking about this morning as well. Is this a question of, you know, the other teams just getting better, putting more money into their programs, and us just sort of staying the same? What's your take on that?
I think other countries are definitely getting better. I think the U.S., for one, is one of the countries that you can look to and just look at how talented, again, for a second straight year, their team is. Sweden has always been good. Finland's always been good. But you mentioned a team like Czechia, Slovakia, Latvia pushed Canada and gave them everything they had, and they're going to have a bunch of returning young players. They were the youngest team in the tournament. So I think it is a combination of just Canada is very talented, but the rest of the world has a lot of talent as well, and especially those countries that were used to competing, but now they're competing in the sense of they're beating Canada a lot more than we kind of come to expect, and especially with Czechia, who's won more than a few times against this Canadian team, and it went to overtime in that gold medal game a few years back, Dylan Gunther's magic to win them gold. So it is a combination of both things, but it's nice to see the rest of the world kind of have their hockey programs rise so that this tournament
the level
isn't
of
just
hockey, is elevated,
exactly.
that's for sure. Well, TSN's Luca, Celebre, great to talk to you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.